Happy Father's Day. Our top story this week: there has been a sudden surge in the number of kids crossing the border from Mexico to the United States without their parents, with the taxpayers' tab tripling in the last year to care for them. Immigrant rights groups are now alleging the abuse of these kids by Border Patrol agents. The Border Patrol agents are being warned not to talk to news reporters about the growing crisis. And an Arizona prosecutor is saying that the federal government is violating Arizona's child abuse laws by dumping them off at facilities in the state. Also in Arizona, the child protective industry has snatched more than 500 kids in light of an investigation into 6,500 previously uninvestigated child abuse reports, with all but 102 of those cases now being closed. In Vermont, legislators are hearing from parents and foster parents about their frustrations in regards to their dealings with the child protective industry because they think that the state is failing to protect children, apparently. Now the child protective industry is claiming that they tried to snatch one of the kids who died recently, but a judge wouldn't let them. And the Vermont Attorney General is refusing to criminally charge any CPS agent for their failures in the case of the death of a little girl named Desiree Sheldon. In California, a bill designed to decriminalize foster kids who get into trouble at group homes but fault the institution instead is being considered in the state Senate. Los Angeles County supervisors vote to hire a child protection czar to oversee the embattled child protective industry. In Kansas, CPS agents are snatching and holding hostage record numbers of foster kids these days. In New York, Erie County is set to lay off 11 CPS agents due to a lack of funding, despite pleas from their leaders to hire more. And the frequency of school shootings has increased since the Sandy Hook massacre in Newtown, Connecticut, with another 41 deaths having occurred in 62 incidents in the 18 months since. In South Africa, a former Mother of the Year is complaining after suffering inhumane treatment over the death of her foster child. In Ireland, the Ombudsman for Children is being asked to investigate the child protective industry for failing to provide social workers to stolen children within a timely manner. In India, unwed mothers are surrendering their babies to government caregivers so they can move on with their lives. And 8 Indian kids escaped from an orphanage after being made to work like slaves. In Canada, the child protective industry can snatch your baby right from the hospital with no explanation whatsoever. And a lawsuit is being proposed in Ontario to represent more than 300 Crown wards who were never compensated for the abuse they suffered before and after coming into care. In Australia, the land where more than 1 in 10 foster kids who are returned to their families are snatched again within 6 months. The Queensland Police is complaining about there not being enough CPS agents to protect kids from abuse and neglect. And cultural norms for Aboriginal children are being mistaken for emotional abuse due to misunderstandings by social workers. In England, the land where mothers can be jailed for waving at their stolen children in the street, Education Secretary Michael Gove wants to hand the reins of the child protective industry over to private agencies who the government would pay to snatch kids from their parents. The government is still pushing for a Cinderella law that would throw parents in jail for 10 years for anything they could call emotional abuse of children. 2 loving grandparents are being forced to fight tooth and nail to stop British social workers from giving away their grandchildren. Great Britain is set to allow its first criminal trial totally in secret. And the former head of Haringey Council's child protective industry claims that one of the worst child abuse cases in recent history could have happened to any social worker, suggesting that they all would miss every opportunity to save an obviously abused child because they are all incompetent buffoons. In Connecticut, the DCF commissioner is accused of interfering with the prosecution of 2 gay men who sexually abused 9 children who they adopted. And the transgendered foster kid is finally going to get released from an adult prison. A former California CPS agent gets busted for sexually assaulting female patients at his private practice. And a father from Stockton, California is charged with homicide for shaking his foster daughter to death, with his bail being raised to $2.2 million. In Arizona, a couple of adopted parents are accused of abusing and starving their adopted daughters. In Ohio, a foster father is convicted of conspiring to kill his wife and talking his foster daughter into doing it so that they could be together forever. In Pennsylvania, a 12-year-old boy is accused of assaulting his caseworker and threatening her with a knife. And 6 people, including a Catholic social service worker and a tax preparer, are charged with stealing the identities of foster children. In Arizona, an Amber Alert is out for a real mother who tries to rescue her 2 daughters from the foster home and even takes a 3rd in the process. In Connecticut, a video gets posted of Justina Pelletier begging the judge to set her free and let her go back home to her family. And the Massachusetts child protective industry agrees and says that the parents have been complying so that CPS can save face and get out of this mess. In Florida, a real father is considering suing the child protective industry after placing him back into the custody of his mother, where he died a short time later. In New Jersey, the child protective industry is trying to take a kid from his parents because he was twirling a pencil at school, and another kid accused him of pretending it was a gun. And finally tonight, in Washington, police detonate a pipe bomb that somebody found outside of a local Child Protective Services office in Bellingham. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.